Good afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Sorry for the delay. We've had some last-minute information coming in that we wanted to make sure and share up-to-the-minute stuff with you all. So let me just get started. We're going to be talking about an overnight homicide that we had and a missing persons case that is somewhat connected to the homicide case, and I'll elaborate. We're also going to give an update on a case that we've been working since yesterday. One that's gotten a lot of interest is a deputy, a cadet at our law enforcement academy that was injured, but we're happy to share some good news today. And then, of course, we're going to talk about our career fair, and we'll also be talking about a case that happened last week about an elderly gentleman that was killed by bees. But we want to share some information with the public in hopes that sort of thing doesn't happen to anyone else. So let me get started. Last night we responded to a homicide case. Deputies were called out to the 8300 block of White Mulberry in far west Bexar County. They were called out there by family members of a lady that lives in the home. When deputies arrived, they looked in the window. The initial call was for a lady that they had not heard from, relatives had not heard from in a couple of days. So deputies arrived, they looked in the window, and they saw what appeared to possibly be a body partially covered the middle of the floor. Using exigent circumstances, deputies forced entry to the home and did indeed find the body of who is believed to be a 57-year-old female that lives in the home, deceased, and she was suffering from severe trauma, and it appears that she'd been dead for at least a few days. We obviously processed the crime scene. The victim in the case has not been definitively identified at this point, but we are handling it as a definite murder case and processing it as such. So we are needing information from anybody that may have information to share with us. To please give us a call, 210-335-6070, or you can email us at bcsotips@bear.org. Anoche nosotros, nuestros diputados fueron despachados al 8300, la cuadra de White Mulberry, una calle en el oeste del condado. Ellos fueron despachados a causa de unos familiares de una mujer de 57 años que vive en la casa allí, que no la han visto en varios días. Cuando nuestros oficiales checaron por las ventanas de la casa, vieron lo que se aparenta fue un cuerpo cubierto en el suelo. Los oficiales entraron a la casa a fuerza y sí encontraron el cuerpo de esa mujer en el piso. Nosotros estamos manejando el caso como homicidio. Esta mujer tenía varias heridas a su cuerpo y pues en estos momentos es lo que estábamos checando. El médico todavía no definitivamente dicho quién es la mujer por nombre, pero sí podemos decir que se piensa que es una mujer de 57 años de edad que vivía en esa casa, y obviamente nosotros estamos manejando este caso como un homicidio. Y quisiéramos que cualquier persona que tenga información, que nos llamen al 210-335-6070, o nos pueden mandar email at bcsotips@bear.org. So also in connection with that, any questions on the homicide case in Spanish or English? Okay, I'll continue then. Also in connection with that case, may or may not be related to the homicide itself. What I can tell you is that we are looking for 24-year-old Andrew Boyd Tetens. Let me give you the spelling on the last name. T is in Tango, Echo, T-E-N-S, T-E-T-E-N-S, Andrew Boyd Tetens. He's a 24-year-old male. He was recently entered as a missing person on July 15th. It is believed that he possibly lives at that same house where the homicide victim was found on White Mulberry. At this point, it's too early to tell if Mr. Tetens is in any way tied to the murder of this 57-year-old female. But what we can tell you is he's been missing since the 15th, and we are looking for him. We are also looking for a white Jeep in connection with Mr. Tetens. And at this point, I think we're showing a picture of both Mr. Tetens and the Jeep. We're asking for anybody with any information on Mr. Tetens. to give us a call. That same number, 210-335-6070. I can describe Mr. Tetens as a 24-year-old male. He's 5'10", 135 pounds, so very thin in stature, blue eyes and brown hair. He's got a mustache and a goatee, beard, shoulder-length hair, but obviously it's possible that his appearance may have changed. We don't know at any possible area where he may be, but we do know that he is supposed to be taking some sort of medications. So we would ask anybody that may see him to not confront him, to give us a call. You can call us at 210-335-6000 if you do happen to see him anywhere in the Bexar County area, or if he's seen it in any other parts of the state, call your local authorities, call 911 and let them know. Again, it's too early to tell if this gentleman is related in any way to what we believe to be the murder of this 57-year-old woman. What we can tell you is that he is missing from that same residence, and we would like any information on his whereabouts or the whereabouts of this 2015 white Jeep Wrangler, two-door, bearing light, Texas license plate, Foxtrot Zulu X-ray 9217, FXZ 9217. También se busca un hombre de 24 años de edad, Andrew Boyd Tetens, que también él vive en la misma casa donde vivía lo que se piensa es esta víctima del homicidio que apenas conté la historia. Andrew Lloyd Tetens ahorita en estos momentos se busca, nosotros activamente nos le estamos buscando. No se sabe si todavía está en la ciudad de San Antonio, en el condado de Bexar, sino que no sabemos dónde está. Se piensa que él está manejando un Jeep Wrangler de 2015. El año es blanco, el carro, y ahí tenemos la foto de Tetens, pero también la foto de un Jeep similar al que se busca. Si alguien tiene información, nos pueden llamar a cualquier hora al 210-335-6070, o si lo ven, si lo llegan a ver, por favor, no se enfrentan con él, simplemente háblenos a nosotros al 911 o al 335-6000. Any questions on Andrew Boyd Tetens? Okay. Let me give an update on the case on the elderly gentleman from a couple of days ago on the 17,000 block of State Highway 16 South in far south Bexar County. What we know is that around 10:36 a.m. that morning, we received a call for a 73-year-old male being stung by bees. When we arrived, the male had been appeared unresponsive, and he was being swarmed by bees. First responders were able to get him out of there, and thankfully nobody else was stung. I'm sorry, there was one other civilian stung, but thankfully none of the first responders were stung. But they were able to get him out of there and get him to the hospital. Unfortunately, the gentleman succumbed to his injuries, and so I believe that we've reported on this story before, but we're saying this just as a reminder that with this wet, hot weather that we're experiencing, we believe that that's conditions that are certainly conducive to bees swarming. And so we would just remind people that much like what this gentleman was doing, it appeared he was doing some sort of yard work, that any loud noises like lawnmowers, things of that nature, may disturb beehives. And so what we're asking people to do at this point is just carefully, before you start any heavy machinery or anything that might make a noise, even like a leaf blower or even a loud diesel truck, if you want to take a visible check of the area and see if you can see anything. If you do see anything sort of like a beehive, these things are I've seen in cases where even overnight, where there was nothing there the day before, all of a sudden overnight, it's a big, huge beehive. These insects work very, very quickly, and a big beehive can actually appear almost overnight. And so if you see anything like that, suspicious in nature, don't try to knock it down or take care of it yourself. We've got people that are specially trained, that they can come out with the right kind of equipment, the right kind of gear, and safely abate these animals or these insects. You can call us at the Sheriff's Office, 210-335-6000. We actually do have a kind of a resident expert, if you will, that we will contact. Now that person or any others may actually charge the homeowner to come on out and do a bee removal. However, I think that I'd venture to say it's probably pretty reasonable, especially in light of the fact that you just don't want to take the chance of being a victim like this poor elderly man that was stung. But it appears that he was stung over 300 times. And so that's nothing to mess around with when you're talking about bee stings like that. Any questions on the bees? Okay. Let me kind of just moving along and oh, somebody has a question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
It's Alejandra Guzman, but I don't know if she's...
Alejandra, you have a question for us?
No.
Yeah, sorry, Sheriff.
Sure.
So we actually, we were actually at the residence where the resident actually lost his life, where you were mentioning he was stung by over 300 times. His neighbor says she was there. His head was covered. His hands were covered. She kind of described it as a very scary movie. She said she's reached out to 311. The 73-year-old was living on Social Security. For him, it was only about $400. That the majority of it went to food and bills. What can people in that situation who cannot afford a bee removal company do before it escalates to this situation?
I would say call, and I'm going to be the first one to tell you that that's a horrible. I mean, yeah, that what you just described, that's a horrible situation. I can't even imagine the horror and the pain that this poor man went through. But I would say if you're on a fixed income, call first responders. We're going to figure something out. You're right. If you're on a fixed income of $400, as many of the folks in our rural communities are, well, shoot, a lot of people within the city limits are, I'd say call and we'll figure out something. But don't make the attempt to say, well, I'm on a fixed income. I'll just take it on myself. No, I'd much rather we figure out a way to get something paid for than to lose somebody, a child, an elderly person, or anybody of any age, to something like this. I certainly wouldn't even wish that sort of thing on an animal, much less a human being. And so in an abundance of caution, call first responders, let us deal with it. And, let us do the outside the box thinking on figuring out ways to pay for it. But please, I'm begging you, don't take this on yourself and just to try to save a buck or two, try to handle it on your own.
Is that your response to Maria, who we spoke with today? We actually saw that the bees are essentially in between the walls of this residence. So she fears that the whole entire wall is plagued by bees. And like you mentioned, they have children in the area. All of the neighbors in this, next to this elderly man's home, are elderly seniors themselves. So sure. She fears for her safety, for her neighbor's safety, and it's a really, really big problem. I'm not sure if you or the deputies have been out here yet, but they're just flying out there.
I'll tell you what, if it's okay, can Johnny call you after this is over with, and we'll get some eyes on the issue, and we'll see what we can't come up with. But sounds like it has not yet been abated. We need to address it. So yeah, we'll figure something out.
Alrighty, thank you, Sheriff.
Thanks for letting us know about that.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions on the bees?
Yes,
okay.
Actually, I have one. Do we happen to know what kind of bees these are? Are they just regular honeybees or?
No, Jacob, I don't think we know yet. And I think it's going to take obviously some sort of an expert to tell us if they're Africanized or if they're just regular honeybees. But I mean, I can tell you just from experience what I've seen, even regular honeybees will ruin your day. I've seen cases where they kill even livestock, full-grown horse or a bull. So yeah, I think they'd make short work of a child or an elderly person, especially if it's somebody that's got underlying health issues. So to answer your question, I don't know. I don't think we know yet what sort of bees these were, but sounding like it still has not been abated. I don't think that's necessarily in our wheelhouse as the sheriff's office, but we'll figure it out because that's not something that I want out there unabated. We need to figure something out. So we absolutely will.
Yeah. Is this the most major call you've seen, I guess, either while working for the sheriff's office or just in the summer generally? Is this kind of the worst that you've seen?
For this year, yes. But I mean, I have seen cases in the past where these things will get a hold of a horse or a dog, and just make short work of them in a heartbeat. So yeah, if this situation that Alejandro describes, that there's kids in this neighborhood, I've actually got Johnny. I just handed him the number to a bee expert that we were handed. Johnny's making that call right now to see if we can't get somebody out there to check out the situation. But yeah, thankfully this is the worst I've seen this year, but I venture a guess that it's something that can happen at any minute, because I'm willing to bet there's people with barns and outbuildings and maybe even, tool sheds that they haven't thoroughly checked. And that's a perfect area for something like bees.
Sheriff, you were mentioning this is not an issue for the Bexar County Sheriff's Office. The city of San Antonio has code compliance. If somebody cannot afford bee removal, who else is supposed to, or who else can actually help in situations like this?
Well, within the city, I just don't know, Alejandra. I don't know what all they have available to them. And I can tell you from the sheriff's office perspective, I can speak for us. I can certainly speak for the unincorporated areas. While it's not within that's not a tool we necessarily have in our toolbox. I'm also not the type to say, well, it's not our problem. Let's just let somebody else figure it out. We're going to have to figure something out. So, I can't say that I'm going to go out and get a bunch of beekeeper costumes or uniforms for my deputies or equipment. But I mean, if you got to solve a problem, you got to solve a problem. And clearly, just leaving a bunch of bees that have already killed one person unchecked, that's not an option in my book. So we'll have to figure something out. And so to answer your question, I don't know, but leaving it unanswered is not an option for me. Okay.
Sheriff, ¿me escucha?
Sí.
Solo quisiera que si pudiera repetir eso de a quién acudir, a quién llamar, porque estuve en ese lugar cuando murió el señor y los vecinos estaban muy confundidos
Sí.
a dónde podían reportar este tipo de cosas, porque las abejas seguían ahí, seguramente siguen ahí. ¿Qué hacer? ¿A quién le llamamos? ¿Al 911? ¿Le llamamos a usted? O si puede repetirnos un poco una orientación para la comunidad hispana.
Bueno, ya llamen al 911. Lo que yo puedo decir es que ahorita, en estos momentos, nuestros oficiales del departamento del sheriff, pues obviamente no tenemos el equipo para hacer algo con este problema de abejas, pero también, aunque no es nuestro trabajo, es nuestro problema. Si es algo que es de peligro de nuestra comunidad, entonces es mi trabajo figurar cómo hacer algo con eso. Entonces en estos momentos no se sabe si puedo mandar a mis oficiales a entrenamiento y darles las herramientas al equipo que ellos necesiten, pero es algo que nosotros tenemos que averiguar qué es el problema, porque algo que ya mató a este hombre, ya hemos visto que estas abejas matan hasta caballos y vacas. Imagínense lo que pueden hacer con un niño o una niña. Eso es algo que pues yo obviamente no voy a dejar simplemente que algo así pase en mi condado. Entonces tenemos que averiguar qué se puede hacer.
Perfecto.
Okay.
Sheriff, may I also, if I may,
Sure.
ask you, can you tell me a little bit more about that, attempting to help him? You mentioned no other first responders got stung, but did they have to don special equipment themselves in order to reach him, or?
They had to get geared up, Jacob, and I know that they did, do first aid. They did CPR on him, but to no avail. Obviously, by that point, it was so late. But yes, they did have to get special gear. So look, I mean, I'm not opposed. I don't even know where to go buy beekeeper gear, right? But I'm certainly not opposed. I've got a foundation. I'm not opposed to buying some gear and figuring out how to send some deputies to the training. I don't know where to send them, but we'll figure it out. And that's why we've got things like the Bexar County Sheriff's Foundation set up to think outside the box and do things. So as we speak, Johnny's feverishly making notes that we need to figure out who can help us be resident bee experts. But certainly just saying, well, it's not our problem, we're cops, that's not an option for us.
So taking this kind of as a learning lesson and how you can prepare for some other future insect attack on a civilian. But really, my main question was really just trying to understand more about how this, how y'all were able to reach him. You know, you mentioned that other civilian was stung. If I understood correctly, she was trying to help him as well, but you know, was also repelled by these same bees. So it just sounded like it was a very intense moment, you know, but something that unfortunately he was already overwhelmed before anybody could help him.
Yeah, it's got to be heartbreaking for that young lady as well. I mean, she's seeing somebody that she probably has known for some time going through a horrible death, what ultimately was a horrible death, and just wanting to help and not being able to get to him without putting yourself at great risk. I mean, she did a great job getting to that point. I can't even imagine what she's going through now. I mean, obviously there's no way she could even begin to blame herself for this, for that. It's a heartbreaking situation. My heart goes out to her that she went through that and she had to witness that. But again, if there's anything within my abilities to figure out a way to prevent it from happening in the future, whether it be through public education, which is what we're hoping to do now, or if it's even thinking even further outside the box and finding myself some bee expert deputies or creating some bee expert deputies, I'm all for it. I don't mind doing it. That's what we're here for.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Any other questions on the bee attack? Okay. I think the last two things we'll touch base on then is our patrol cadet. So yesterday, early in the morning, we received a call for a shooting or a person injured in a shooting at the county gun range out on Farm Road. We responded. What we discovered was that one of our cadets, a female cadet, she's going through the law enforcement class, actually got struck in the face by what appears to be a bullet fragment. Interestingly enough, she wasn't even on the firing line when it happened. But what we can gather to this point is this, that there was a deputy, or a trainee, on the firing line, and he was at about the number 7 position. So if you can picture a firing line and you can see where shooters line up, he was at about the number 7 position, which is about halfway down. And then the next, there was instructors behind him, immediately behind him, watching him shoot and correcting his form and whatever else it is that instructors need to do at that point. And there was a group of cadets far down to his left, probably about 25 feet, and then back several yards. So they were standing clearly outside the line of fire. But what it appears is that he was shooting through an obstacle, and at some point it looks like a bullet fragment may have struck that obstacle, and believe it or not, spun around inside of a barrel that was part of the obstacle and ended up striking the other trainee, his classmate, that was to his left and far behind him. A fragment of the bullet, so shrapnel, struck her in the face, and it caused a pretty substantial injury. When it was described to me initially, it didn't sound as bad as when I finally saw the picture. She's got a pretty substantial cut on her face. I actually spoke to the cadet that was struck. She is a new deputy to the agency, so she's one of the ones that we're talking about that we hired from the outside to be a law enforcement deputy, but they're going through the training academy. So she's a veteran of law enforcement, but she's new to us. I spoke to her on the phone, and she told me that she says, "Hey, Sheriff, I'll be in PT tomorrow, physical training." And I said, "No, you won't. Let's slow it down a little bit. Let's pump the brakes." And so we want to make sure she was okay. Today, I was just advised that she's been cleared to light duty. And so she'll be sitting in a classroom with a bandage on her face. She won't be doing any physical type stuff. She won't be shooting anytime soon. We want to get that healed up first. But she's okay. Psychologically, she's pretty tough. She said she wanted to go back to physical training yesterday. And, I got to hand it to her. She's just a tough individual. Certainly the sort of troop we would want protecting and serving our streets. But from a firearms perspective on the training, we're looking at it and making sure that in spite of the fact that it was a freak accident that was literally, a 1 in a million accident shot, it did happen, and she got injured. So we just need to review what could have been done any differently and what corrections do we need to make moving forward. The maneuver that was being taught is part of, if I'm not mistaken, it's part of the state mandated. So it's a recognized tactic. It's not like they were doing anything that they saw, in an action movie and said, hey, let's try this. It's a recognized training tactic that they were training on, but it's just a freak accident that happened. And so we're blessed that it wasn't much worse than what it was, but we just need to see how do we correct that from happening moving forward. Nosotros queremos dar más información tocante un incidente que pasó con nuestra clase de cadetes que ellos estaban ensayando su tiro de armas. Uno de nuestros cadetes estaba entrenando, él estaba disparando hacia el enfrente del área donde estaban ensayando. Otra cadete, una mujer que obviamente está en la misma clase, ella estaba parada a la izquierda y más atrás de este cadete. Pero se aparenta que la bala le pegó a un objeto y la bala se partió en varias piezas. Una de esas piezas voló para atrás y le pegó a la cadete en la cara. Ella sufrió una herida menor en la cara, pero pues sí, en estos momentos ella ya la dejaron entrar para atrás para su clase. Ella está con la clase, tiene una herida menor en la cara, pero ella ya no puede seguir con tácticas físicas. Pero ella solamente va a estar en la clase por unos días hasta que ya se alivie de esa herida. Any other questions on that? Okay. Well, while I've got an audience, I do want to just remind everybody about our career fair that's coming up Saturday the 17th. We hope to see all the media come out and cover it. It's going to be at the Tri-Point YMCA, 3233 North St. Mary's at 281 in St. Mary's. We're going to be there at the Tri-Point at 8 a.m. and we'll be there till about 1 o'clock. We are hiring for detention. That's where you'll work in the jail first, and we're hiring people as young as 18 years of age for that post. We do have a $2,000 signing bonus that was approved by commissioners several weeks ago. We've had great success with that, but we're bringing people in. We're also, if you're already a licensed peace officer through the state, you can come through, and it's a shorter academy, but you'll be able to go through the law enforcement academy and become a law enforcement deputy. Now that departs a bit from the traditional track. So you may get a lot of veteran officers say, well, I don't want to work in a jail first. Well, if you've already got your Texas peace officer license, you don't necessarily have to work in the jail first. You can go through this other process and become a law enforcement deputy. But we're also offering civilian opportunities in there. So if there's anybody that's looking for civilian jobs, such as security monitor, dispatcher, call taker, clerk, anything of that nature, there's something there for you as well. So please come out to the Tri-Point YMCA, 3233 North St. Mary's on Saturday the 17th from 8 to 1. And we'd like you to come out and consider putting in an application and taking a test for future employment with the Sheriff's Office. If there's any other questions, are there any other questions about any of the topics that we covered or anything else for that matter? We do have one. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I just had a quick question about the homicide you were talking about. Can you tell us what Andrew's relationship with that woman is? I know you said they were living together. Is he a relative, or is that still being determined?
It's believed that they're relatives. It's a non-romantic familial relationship. I'll leave it at that because we still have not yet definitively identified the victim. And so I'll leave it at that, but they did reside there together in a non-romantic familial type relationship.
Thank you so much.
Sure thing. We did have one question via Facebook, so I'll answer that one if that's okay. Any concerns for the safety of those living on White Mulberry? Yes. Obviously we're on the phone trying to get somebody out there right now to see what, if any, other threat is there. I would say if you're driving back and forth along that area, just keep your windows up. I would not let the kiddos come out to play necessarily near that home. But let us get out there and try to figure out how, to what extent that's still a threat out there, and then how do we figure out a way to get it abated. So we'll let everybody know when all is clear. We'll probably post it on social media, as this is clearly still an ongoing situation. Again, this is not necessarily something that's necessarily within our lane as the sheriff's office, but if there's a safety concern anywhere in the county, we need to address it. We need to figure something out. So we absolutely will. Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. So I'm sorry, my mistake. So this question was regarding the murder case. Is there anything considering the safety on White Mulberry? The answer is no. We don't believe that there is any ongoing threat there. Obviously, we would ask that if anybody sees any suspicious activity at this residence, that anybody that lives on White Mulberry, if they happen to see this white Jeep or they happen to see Mr. Teton, the person that we're trying to locate, don't confront him. Just give us a call 911 and let us know, and let us go forth and handle that if we can. Are there any other questions from anybody on any of these topics, or any others that we can cover? Okay. Thank you all so much for joining us. We'll be giving updates on any of these cases as we're able to. In the meantime,